When it comes to Drake, they finally got him. If you are ready to witness what might genuinely be the end of this entire lawsuit era and everything that has come with it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe right now. We had to come back today with breaking news because what has just been officially confirmed is one of the most significant developments in hip-hop over the last 2 years. Drake's defamation lawsuit against UMG over Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us has been formally and officially dismissed by the court. And we are finally, almost completely, on the other side of one of the worst things we have ever been forced to watch unfold in this culture. Leave a like right now because this is genuinely great news for everyone in hip-hop. Unless, of course, you are a Drake stan, in which case I understand this is going to be a difficult day for you. The lawsuit has been sent to the Cosmic, right where Drake has been sitting for the better part of 2 years now. And we are going to read through the full statement because this one deserves to be documented and appreciated in its entirety. This statement comes from Judge Vargas, the very judge that the OVO community was absolutely counting on to somehow validate their guy's case and save whatever is left of his career. Because this is exactly why you do not bring a rap battle loss to a courtroom. This case arises from perhaps the most infamous rap battle in the entire genre's history, the blistering and deeply personal war of words that broke out between superstar recording artists Aubrey Drake Graham and Kendrick Lamar Duckworth in the spring of 2024. Over the course of 16 days, the two artists released 8 diss tracks filled with escalating rhetoric, loaded accusations, and increasingly heated imagery. The penultimate song in this exchange, Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar, delivered what the court describes as the metaphorical final blow. The song went on to become a full-blown cultural sensation, achieving both immense commercial success and widespread critical acclaim that most artists could only dream of. Both Drake and Kendrick Lamar hold recording contracts with defendant UMG Recordings. And while there are sections of the ruling that go into the specific content of Not Like Us in ways that cannot be fully addressed here, the conclusion of the court's statement is the only thing that matters. Drake brought this action against UMG for defamation, harassment in the second degree, and a violation of Section 349 of the New York General Business Law. And then comes the line that ends everything Drake has been building toward for the past year. The court concludes that the allegedly defamatory statements in Not Like Us are non-actionable opinion. The motion to dismiss is granted, and with that, Drake, you are done. You are out of here. And we are finally almost completely free from one of the most damaging and embarrassing chapters in hip-hop history. The question I want to put directly to Drake, and to every single person who went along with this and encouraged it, was any of it worth it? Because not even the court system is telling him that he has a leg to stand on. They did not even let this thing reach trial. They threw it out entirely because his claims were not legitimate enough to go any further. That is not a defeat. That is a complete and total rejection. This is genuinely historic in every single way you want to look at it. And the line from the court's ruling, that the allegedly defamatory statements in Not Like Us are non-actionable opinion, deserves to sit right alongside every Kendrick Lamar and Pusha T bar that has ever publicly dismantled Drake's reputation. Because for Drake specifically, this might honestly be the single worst thing he has ever heard. Worse than any diss track, worse than any streaming number, worse than anything that came before it. Because a judge just told the entire world in an official legal document that Drake's case was not worth pursuing.
Because when you really think about what we have just witnessed, a rapper getting so deeply humiliated and so thoroughly embarrassed from losing a rap beef that he actually took it to court, that is not just a hip-hop story. That is a story about a person who has completely lost their grip on reality and their ability to accept any outcome they did not engineer themselves. And now, Drake is not just being laughed out of the culture, he is being laughed out of the boardrooms. He is losing business relationships. He is paying his own legal costs and contributing to UMG's on top of that. The financial and reputational damage from this decision alone is going to follow him for years.
And here is the part that makes this entire situation even more painful when you really sit with it. After the beef, Kendrick won, but Drake was still sitting in that number 2 spot on UMG's roster. He still had a lane. He still had resources, an audience, and a platform. He could have taken that position, made his music, moved forward quietly, and preserved whatever was left of his commercial standing. But instead, Drake chose to bank absolutely everything: his reputation, his label relationship, his credibility in hip-hop, and his standing as a professional on a lawsuit that has just been thrown out in the most definitive way possible. And it was all for nothing.
And now, seeing the full picture of where things are, it becomes clear just how catastrophic and how complete this downfall actually is. Because he has run out of moves. Everything has been tried, and everything has failed. From trying to convince the world he won the beef, to spreading every possible narrative about Kendrick he could manufacture, to dragging this lawsuit through the courts for a year while crying to a judge about what was and was not allowed in a rap battle. Every single option has been exhausted. And the worst part is that Drake did not have to be in this position at all. He chose it, step by step, decision by decision. And what happens next with Drake and UMG's relationship is genuinely one of the most interesting things to watch going forward. Because we already know things between them have been broken for a long time. Drake has been taking shots at label executives publicly. The industry has largely moved on from him. And the reality is that UMG still controls and owns significant portions of his catalog, which means Drake has no real leverage here, despite having torched the relationship from his side completely. And with that dynamic in place, if you are expecting Iceman to arrive anytime soon, this ruling has almost certainly put everything on indefinite hold. Because the label is your boss. If they do not want to move forward, you are not moving forward. And you do not have the leverage to force anything when the relationship is this damaged. And Drake has now managed to simultaneously lose the goodwill of hip-hop culture, the interest of the broader public, and the trust of the label infrastructure that made him commercially viable in the first place. All three of those pillars are gone within the span of a single year. And I genuinely do not know what a realistic path forward looks like for him from this position. But knowing who Drake is, there will inevitably be some kind of response. And based on his track record, it is probably going to make everything worse. And while there is so much more to say about just how colossal and how complete this failure has been for Drake across every dimension, as a rapper, as a professional, and as a public figure, what I also want to acknowledge is the bigger and more important thing that this dismissal represents for the culture. Because beyond all of the Drake jokes and all of the celebration, the fact that this lawsuit was thrown out is genuinely significant for hip-hop and for artistic expression as a whole. At least for now, at least in this specific way, rap has been protected. Rappers are not going to be forced to look over their shoulders every time they want to say something true and real in a beef. Because the principle that a diss track constitutes non-actionable opinion, that it lives within the realm of creative and artistic expression rather than factual defamation, has now been upheld by a court of law. And that matters enormously for the freedom and the integrity of this genre going forward. If Drake had won this case, or even gotten it to trial, the chilling effect on rap music would have been severe and lasting. Artists would have had to calculate legal risk before they ever put a word on paper in a competitive context, and that is simply not what hip-hop was built to be. That said, the damage this lawsuit has already done to the culture is real, and it is not going to disappear overnight. There will still be hesitance, especially among artists who are more deeply controlled by their labels and who do not have the resources or the platform to fight a legal battle if one came their way. But what this ruling does signal, particularly in spaces where tensions are already high, like the ongoing friction between various female rap camps, is that people can go ahead and say what they need to say, let the music speak, and allow the public to decide the outcome. That is how hip-hop is supposed to work. The courtroom was never supposed to be part of it. And the implications of this ruling for where the music business goes from here are genuinely significant and worth paying close attention to. Because while this ended in the best possible outcome for artistic freedom, and it absolutely could have gone much worse, the industry is still going to adapt and adjust in ways that are going to benefit its own interests more than the artists within it. And with rap already having been diluted and compromised in so many ways over recent years, having this specific dimension of the conversation resolved in favor of free expression is something worth genuinely celebrating.
because it did not have to go this way, and for once, the right outcome arrived.
And with that, hip-hop has at least been saved today in this specific and meaningful way. Rappers are not going to have to fundamentally change what they say or how they say it because of the precedent this case could have set. And for Drake's remaining fan base, the Cupcakes are going to have to sit with another massive loss on top of everything they have already had to absorb. Because their guy has never been in a lower or more vulnerable place. And this ruling did not just send the lawsuit to the cosmic, it sent Drake's standing in the culture along with it.
And I have to mention, Kendrick Lamar was spotted at a soccer match the day after all of this came down. Headphones in, phone out, completely unbothered, sipping on something and just watching the game like a man who has nothing to worry about. And just watching how calm and composed he looked, knowing that Kendrick is never someone who puts his emotions on display publicly, regardless of the circumstances, you genuinely have to wonder whether he and his team already knew this ruling was coming before it was publicly announced. That level of composure, at that specific moment, says everything about who Kendrick Lamar is and how differently these two men have handled every part of this situation.
Because if Drake had managed to get this case to an actual trial, if the court had decided that the contents of a diss track could constitute legitimate defamation, the damage to hip-hop as an art form and as a cultural institution would have been enormous and potentially irreversible. The industry was already weakened. The landscape was already compromised. A Drake victory there would have handed a legal weapon to every powerful person and institution that ever gets targeted in a song for the rest of time. The fact that it was phone out is not just a win for Kendrick Lamar. It is a win for every rapper who has ever said something true about someone who did not want to hear it.
And even with all of that genuine celebration, I want to put this out there because it is something I cannot fully shake. There was a moment where the label reportedly told Drake that if he had a real problem with Kendrick Lamar, he should go all the way and handle it properly. And now, with every other option exhausted, every legal move played out, and every bridge burned, is it actually out of the question that Drake's next move is to sue Kendrick Lamar directly? As a hip-hop fan, the idea of that happening and the precedent it could attempt to set does genuinely concern me. It is not the most likely outcome, but it is not impossible either.
And I guess we are just going to have to wait and see what happens next. I cannot wait to see how Drake and the people around him react to this ruling publicly. And I want to say, as someone who has been covering this lawsuit from almost the very beginning, and has followed every development, every filing, every twist and turn for nearly a full year, thank you to everyone who has been here throughout this entire journey. This is genuinely one of the best outcomes we could have hoped for. Hip-hop's speech has been preserved, at least for now. And when Drake makes his next move, and he will, I will be right here to cover it. And if you have stuck around through all of the coverage of this lawsuit from the beginning, that genuinely means everything, and I really appreciate you being here. Leave a like if you have not already, because it helps more than you know. And if you are happy that artistic expression in hip-hop has been protected today, if you just want to watch the Drake stands get packed out one final time as the dismissal sinks in, check out the suggested video. Because they are going to be more furious than ever, and watching them try to spin this one is going to be genuinely something to see.
And really, when you step back and look at the full timeline of everything that has happened, from the moment Not Like Us dropped and shook the entire culture, to Drake filing this lawsuit and dragging it through the courts for nearly a year, to this ruling landing today, what you are witnessing is one of the most complete and total public collapses of a major artist's legacy that we have ever seen in real time. Because Drake did not just lose a rap battle, he lost a rap battle, then tried to use the legal system to undo the loss, and then got rejected by that system so decisively that the judge did not even feel the need to let it reach a trial. That sequence of events, in that specific order, has never happened to anyone at Drake's level, and it is going to define how he is remembered in this culture for a very long time.
And what I keep coming back to, what I think is the most important thing to take away from all of this, beyond the celebration, is what this moment actually means for the next generation of artists coming up in this space. Because young rappers have been watching everything that has unfolded over the last 2 years very closely. They have seen what happens when you win a beef the right way, the way Kendrick did, with real bars, real artistry, and real accountability.
And they have also seen what happens when you respond to a loss the wrong way, the way Drake did, with lawyers, lawsuits, and legal filings designed to silence the person who beat you. And the fact that the court has now firmly and clearly sided with artistic expression over legal suppression is going to send a message to every young artist watching that the pen is still the weapon that matters most in the genre.
Because that is ultimately what Kendrick Lamar has represented throughout this entire era. Not just the winner of a beef, not just the better rapper in a single competitive moment, but a living demonstration of what happens when you actually trust the music, trust the culture, and trust the audience to make the right call when the truth is presented clearly. Kendrick never needed a lawyer. He never needed a courtroom. He put the words on the record, let the public hear them, and allowed the response to speak for itself. And the response was, Not Like Us, becoming one of the biggest and most culturally significant rap songs in years. That is what real confidence in your art looks like, and that is the standard that this entire situation has now permanently set for everyone else.
So, as we close out this chapter and wait to see what Drake does next, whether he sues Kendrick directly, whether Iceman eventually surfaces, whether he finds some new and even more desperate way to try and stay relevant in a culture that has moved past him, just remember what today actually was. Today was the day a judge looked at everything Drake built his case on, evaluated it against 40 years of legal precedent protecting artistic expression, and said no. Today was the day hip-hop got a ruling that affirmed what everyone in the culture already knew, that a rap battle is not a crime, that a diss track is not defamation, and that you cannot sue your way out of losing a rap beef. And that is something worth celebrating regardless of what comes next. Leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.